today that a Liberal government will create a fund, an early learning and childcare fund of $500 million a year, which will ramp up over 4 years to $1 billion a year, to shrink those waiting lists for daycare and early learning childcare spaces across Canada.
Yes, it's a campaign fixture and on a campaign trail. So joining me to discussing the pros and cons of government-subsidized daycare in Toronto is Ann Decter, Director of Public Policy for the YWCA. And here in the studio with me is Andrea Mrozek from the Institute of Marriage and Family Canada. Welcome to you both. All right, I want to go to you first, Ann, in Toronto. $500 million for a daycare program, that sounds like a lot, but you can use up an awful lot of money quickly if you're trying to provide daycare spaces for everybody. Will it work?
It certainly can work. YWCA Canada is very pleased to see the Liberal Party make this kind of commitment during the campaign. In particular, we're very happy to see that they're making a long-term commitment to make sure that there is a space for every family who wants one, and we think that's the way the policy needs to go. And this is finally taking a promise to fill a social policy gap that's been around far too long.
Yeah, it's sure been around a long time as an unkept promise, but Andrea, I don't think you necessarily agree. What do you think of the announcement today? Why is it such a bad idea?
Basically because it's not equitable and it doesn't give families across this country the opportunity to choose what they want for their children. When you put money, vast sums of money, and $500 million has got to be a bare minimum for where the cost,
the start point,
yeah,
right?
The cost of this sort of program. If you imagine what parents could do with that kind of money in their pockets, it's a far more effective use of the money, and it's far fairer because parents are not actually choosing institutional care as their first choice. So this sort of one-size-fits-all approach is not an effective way to serve Canadian families.
I'd really have to disagree there.
Okay.
I don't think it actually does go further if you put it in parents' pockets. It goes a lot further if we pull it together and create a system that parents can choose to send their children to or not. Right now, the choice argument keeps being made saying that choice means not having any kind of national child care strategy, when in fact we need a national child care strategy so that parents can choose to send their children there or not. Women's roles in Canada have changed dramatically over the last 30 years. Women with children under the age of 3, almost 2/3 of them are in the workforce, and that's a 233% increase since 1976, which is why you've been hearing talk of the need for a national child care plan for many years. Women need this, families need this, kids need this.
Yeah, I understand where Ann's coming from because, you know, obviously there's a shortage of daycare spaces. We all look across the river with envy at Quebec that has $5 daycare.
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Well,
Quebec is a mediocre system. It's failing families there. It would fail. That sort of system applied to the country would be a disaster. There's wait lists in Quebec. There's skyrocketing prices there, $7 a day. It's actually in reality $70 or $80 a day. Parents aren't really clamoring for this type of system. I think that the polls show, our group, Institute of Marriage and Family Canada, but others as well, show that parents are not clamoring for a universally funded child care system that the feds would put in place. Quebec is not the success story that we're led to believe.
The announcement.
Go ahead then, Ann.
Hi, the announcement is for a social infrastructure fund that the provinces can apply to and take a portion to create their systems. It's not a universally funded system, and it's not a one-size-fits-all system. And I think when you only have licensed child care spaces for 1 in 5 children, you got to wonder where the rest of those children are. And it'd be a lot better to have them in a licensed space than in an unlicensed one, which is where this is going. There's no reason that a child care system couldn't be as normal in our social system as a public system, a public school system, which is where it really needs to go, given the changes that have happened for Canadian women over the last 30 years.
Last word to you, Andrea.
I'm glad it's an election issue because really I don't think that Canadian families are clamoring for this sort of system. If it's not a universal daycare system, then what is it really? There has to be, the Liberals will be putting in this sort of structure that forces families to comply with institutional care. Again, I do think that families given the choice would prefer to have money in their pockets.
Okay, Ann Decter in Toronto and Andrea Mrozek here in studio, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Good discussion.